Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar, Maximizing Hybrid Learning, Next Generation AI-Powered LMS for the Modern Workforce. My name is Renee, and I will be moderating our session today. We shall wait a few minutes before the actual presentation to give others time to join. In the meantime, I will go over the house rules. By the end of the webinar, we will be sharing a recording of this session with everyone within the next 48 hours and a downloadable link to the slides. At the end, we will carry out a Q&A session, so please go ahead and use the comments section. In the event that we're unable to answer all the questions, we will email the replies to you as soon as possible. Our panelist today is Jeff Walter. Jeff Walter is a pioneering leader in extended enterprise learning with over 20 years of experience. As the founder and CEO of LatitudeLearning, he helps Fortune 500 and middle market organizations implement high-impact extended enterprise training programs. He developed the Extended Enterprise Learning Guide, a comprehensive roadmap for planning, implementing, managing, and improving highly effective extended enterprise training programs. A technologist at heart, his passion is evolving LatitudeLearning's learning platform so L&D professionals can achieve remarkable results with their training programs. Jeff is a frequent guest on learning and development podcasts and roundtable discussions, including Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. Before we begin the presentation, I'd like to put a disclaimer out there. Any information shared today should not be used as legal or financial advice. The opinions expressed are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect those of his or her employer or any other party. For any legal matters or questions, please consult with a qualified legal professional. To get a better understanding of our audience today, let's begin with a poll question. Are you looking for ways to streamline employee training and developing your teams? Please answer yes or no. So it looks like quite a few of you would be interested in streamlining these processes. In that case, we hope this presentation addresses some of your concerns. I'm now going to pass it on to our panelist. You're good to go, Jeff.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll learn a few things together. I always enjoy doing these. The big topic today, it's the big topic this year, is artificial intelligence. It's kind of taken the world by storm in the last year or so. And so what we've been trying to do here, what I've been trying to do is kind of figure out, okay, well, what does that mean from a learning development perspective? I just got back from the World of Learning Summit in London about 2 weeks ago, and it was the hot topic there, and just want to kind of share with you all what our opinion, or by our, I mean my opinion, I'm just one man. Our organization is larger than that, but these are just my opinions, as Renee said earlier. But our opinion on how this might impact training. So first off, I'm blessed. This is the third major technological revolution I've had in my career. And, everyone's kind of rightly concerned when something comes along, will this take over the world? AI is going to change everything. And the first thing I think about, when having gone through a couple of these technological revolutions before, is it kind of reminds me of the folklore of John Henry. And for those who don't remember the folklore, John Henry was a steel-driving man back at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, when the steam engine came out, and he raced the steam engine to see who could mine more. John Henry with his 20-pound hammer in the Great Bend mine in Pennsylvania, or the steam engine. And it was kind of, if you think about it, it's the steam engine kind of created our modern world that we're in. And so, but in ways that you can never expect. So I kind of said, will it take over the world? No, we're still going to need humans. But if we can go to the next slide, one thing we can keep in mind. Next slide, please. Okay. Yes, is that the AI proponents will overpromise. It's happened every single time there's a major leap in technology. It happened during the dot-com boom. Everything was E. For those of us around to remember that, everything was E. E-com, the dot-com boom was going to, change the world, and people overpromised. But one thing we can be assured of, and we go next slide, is that the AI proponents will underdeliver. And if we can get the slides going, I'd appreciate that. Okay. Hey, Renee,
Yeah, hi.
can we get the slides going?
Yep. It's
Yeah.
there.
All right. Thanks. Sorry about that. But like I said, the AI proponents will underdeliver. So they're going to overpromise, they're going to underdeliver, but then lastly, and just change the slide, AI will change everything, just the way the steam engine changed everything, just the way the internal combustion engine changed everything, electricity changed everything, television and radio changed everything. And the advent of the computer, the transistor, the microprocessor, the PC, the internet, and now AI. So it will change everything. We can get to next slides. I appreciate that. The one thing we can be sure of is that while it will change everything, we don't know what that change will look like. We're at the dawn of this thing. We think we have ideas on how things will change, and that's what I'm going to present here. But like every other major technological revolution, we really don't know what that change will look like. And can we get the slides to change?
All right, Matt, please change the slides.
And can we go past that one? There we go. And so one more, Matt. Thank you. And so if you were around, I was around 1995 when the internet was a thing. I remember one of my close friends was the first guy to have cigars.com. And I remember asking him what that was. And he said, you use this browser thing. And this was even before e-commerce. And in 1995, the internet was coming, email was coming, websites were coming, but no one ever predicted where we're at today here 30 years later. And nobody predicted the social media and its impact and how it's changing the world and how it's changing a generation. And so again, we can look back, the internet has changed everything, but we couldn't predict. So I'd ask you all to kind of keep that in mind as we go through this AI revolution. And remember, all the proponents they're going to overpromise, they're going to underdeliver, but in the long run, it's going to change everything. So what does that have to do with learning and development? And so if we can go to the next slide. So what we've tried to do is boil it down. I've been to a number of shows. I've talked to a number of AI companies that are emerging. There's some really exciting technology out there. And what we've tried to do with our LMS, but also just as industry practitioners, and I've been in the learning and development space for over 20 years now, trying to figure out what are those initial AI use cases so we can kind of ground this and really give it some focus and some purpose. And so we've come up with 7 training and development AI use cases, and we'll get into them in a little detail, but to just go over them briefly. There's chat support. There's content creation, which would include mainly course creation and resource creation, assessment creation, assessing knowledge. Role playing is going to be a big one. Simulation is going to be a big one. and analytics, I think will really help this industry in terms of proving its value out there. And then lastly, one thing you see, and this is I think a big one for the LMS vendors out there, is individualized learning plans. And so we're just going to kind of go into each one, talk a little bit about it, what it is, how does it work, what its impact or how it might work with a learning platform. And hopefully, as we get through them, you'll start to see how AI is going to help change the training and development. But again, I go back to the first thing. We're at the tip of the iceberg here, and greater minds than mine will figure things out. So first, let's talk about the chat support. We've probably experienced this as consumers at this point. AI chatbots for the learning and development community, and job aids. This could be the first line of support for the learners in terms of gaining information. So if we go to the next slide, what is this? What are chatbots? And you're going to see this happen multiple times. They use AI and natural language processing, so they can process language to understand and learn from interactions. But basically, they provide learners with a place to ask about the job and responsibilities and questions. They also will serve the purpose of providing reference out to the vast libraries of information that are available out there. Now, sometimes half the challenge for a learner is just finding the right resource or the right course to take for a particular bit of knowledge or a particular set of skills that they're looking for to get a question answered. And so the chatbots will not only provide that first line of support in terms of how do I do this job, or what are these responsibilities, or how do I turn this on, or how do I change that filter, or what is the vacation policy here, but they will also provide the reference out to the appropriate resource or the appropriate course. Now, like I said, it's capable of answering questions and providing them references. And you'll see these chatbots in multiple forms. The most common one right now is the text chatbot, where you're just kind of doing it all through text. Started to see some synthesized voices out there, and as you have Siri and that on your phone, that's an example of a chatbot, and then even some avatars. So that's kind of what the chatbots are. I think that we're pretty familiar with. We're going to start seeing those come into the learning environment. And if we go to the next slide, and they're an excellent pairing for the LMS, because the LMS already contains a lot of the information, a lot of the HR policies, employee benefits, the work procedures, either embedded in the content of the courses or embedded in resources that are available through the LMS. So, and what you need to do to make these happen. So anyway, I'm sorry. Just an excellent pairing. You're going to see this in a lot of LMSs. We've already incorporated a chatbot into our LMS in turn for our users. And so all of our support documentation is available in there. And we're currently working on expanding it out to our customers so that they can have their own chatbots in their own learning environments. So I think this is one place you're going to see adopted within the learning platforms. And if we go to the next slide, so, and how do they work? Well, basically, unlike if any of you guys, and by this point, I think a lot of folks have played around with ChatGPT or some of the other publicly available agents AIs out there. What makes these chatbots different, and you'll see this throughout the presentation, is you got to focus them on a body of knowledge. If they're not hitting the entire internet for the knowledge, you want to say, this is this body of knowledge that I want you to focus on. And like I said, the LMS already has like HR policies and work procedures, either in resources or baked into the courses. So it's an excellent source for that body of knowledge. And then to train it, you focus it on that body of knowledge. You ask it a bunch of questions. One of the terms you'll start to hear if you haven't already is this concept of hallucinations, where the AI gets something wrong, and so you need to correct the hallucination. So before you unleash a chatbot on your learners, you want to ask it a bunch of questions. You can go to your your ticketing system if you're keeping track of interactions with your learners, and start feeding those in and asking the chatbot those questions to make sure it's giving the right answer, and then it'll learn as you go on. And so that's the first one, is chatbots, and we see those going into most of the learning platforms as an excellent pairing there. So if we move on to the second one, or the next one, next slide, please. So the next after chat support is content creation, and really, to me, content takes two forms. It's the course content, and it's resource content, and what I define those as, courses are learning formal learning that you take, that you get a transcript, that you pass the course, whereas content is a reference material that you're just referencing, and it's not necessarily tracked its consumption. So that's how I define the two. Other people define it, but creating that content is a long and arduous process. Authoring a course takes a lot of effort. Authoring good resources takes a lot of effort. And so for this, where what you have is generative AI. So generative AI is AI used to create content. Right now, the technology is pretty solid in terms of textual content, and we're starting to see it get better in video content and in image content. But it will be a feature, and you're already seeing it incorporated into any type of course authoring or content authoring tools, and you'll see that just advance. Yeah, and you might have see it in some of the authoring tools that you're already using. A lot of the Adobe tools already have that baked into them, for example. And so if we go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, Jeff. We have
Yep,
like 3 questions right now.
sure, fire away.
Salima is asking, first she asks, can you recommend any chatbots for LMS, or would we need to create one on our own? Then she's asking, are you saying that chatbots can be embedded into any LMS?
Well, what I'm saying, so first off with the chatbots, I would be hesitant at this stage to recommend any particular vendor. The technology is evolving pretty quickly, and but essentially, there are a number out there, and the big guys, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, they all have chatbots. And it's not that a customer could put the chatbot in the AI, it's that, or in the LMS, it's that the LMS vendor would make that a feature of the LMS. And so, for example, what we embedded in our LMS is we're using OpenAI in the back to do the actual that's the actual AI that's working, but they have a chatbot service, and so we engage in that service, and we provide that to our customers. And then the book of knowledge is all of our training material and all of our documentation on how to use the system, how to use our system, and then we embedded into our tool the chatbot. So if you go into our tool and you go over to the left-hand menu and you go down to support chat, and you hit that, a little window pops up and you can start chatting with the AI. And then we've integrated that if for whatever reason you cannot get your question answered with the AI, that it's integrated with our ticketing system, and it'll generate a ticket, and then we'll have a human follow up with you. So I hope that answers the question. Like I said, we're using OpenAI, but like I said, the technology is evolving, and so there'll be something 6 months from now. But all the major AI vendors are providing that type of back-end service, and it's something that you pay for. And so, what was the second question?
She's asked two more questions.
Sure, fire away.
So she's saying, how can we rely on the accuracy of the chatbot on an ongoing basis, especially for regulated industries like healthcare?
So, and that's where that body of knowledge comes in. So what makes when you're doing this type of thing, again, it's not to get its information. It's using that natural language processing so that it can, and large language models so it can understand language, but it's not going out to the universe or out to the internet to get its information. It's only going to report on, and it's only going to use what's in that body of knowledge. So what you have to do is you have to curate that body of knowledge to say, this is what is, you know, you can report on. And so, say on the healthcare industry, there's plenty of websites with plenty of um, questionable advice out there for different health conditions. And what these chatbots do is you say, no, here are the documents that, here is the body of knowledge. Everything you do will come out of this body of knowledge. It doesn't matter what's on some website over there. But I think that does raise an issue. I was just talking to one of the directors of one of the medical boards here in the U.S. And it's an exciting technology, but those are concerns. So, and I think the answer to that right now is you focus on that body of knowledge, and then you really want to do that prompting and ask it questions and see if you're getting any hallucinations. And that's like the testing part. Uh, but I think the more highly regulated you are, I think you might want to take a more conservative approach because it's not clear how the regulatory agencies are going to how they would treat any type of thing that would come from this. So and that's more of a regulatory issue, not a technology issue. But in terms of training the thing, you want to focus on that. Now, just talking about the regulatory side of things for a second, as since we're on the generative AI, we're using AI to create courseware. Um, when I was over in London at the World of Learning, there was this one company that they were just in their beta version, but it's a course authoring tool specifically made for regulatory industries so that it could go through your courseware and update when the regulations change, update the regulations. It's not a course authoring tool per se. It's like this little add-on tool that will rip through your e-learning courses, your SCORM-based e-learning courses. And as regulations change, it'll find all the places where those regulations are mentioned and its proper context and update the content accordingly. So that was pretty exciting. It's in a beta version. It's not available to the public yet. And I was talking to their CTO, and he was showing me how it worked. And it was pretty cool. And so, so on the chatbot, that's one thing. It's really asking it all those questions, making sure it doesn't hallucinate, correcting it if it does, and getting a sense of how your regulatory agency is going to treat this stuff. But then on the generative AI, which we were just talking about, there are tools like coming out, like the one I just talked about, that will help you keep your courses aligned with the updates and regulations. So what else we got there, Renee?
Yeah, hi. So she has one final question. Is it possible to embed chatbot in individual e-learnings? I'm very eager to try that if possible.
Um, I assume you mean in individual e-learning courses. That's a good question. I don't know. Uh, the technologist in me says anything is possible, but I don't know. I don't know how that would work with SCORM. So that's a good question. Uh, um, I can look into that a little and get back to you. It's something I just don't know off the top of my head. So, all right. Any other questions there, Renee, at this point, or should I push
We're
on?
good to go. We're good to go. You can keep going.
Okay. So we just, I kind of talked on the generative. It's about using these tools. interesting thing about the generative AI, this is a productivity enhancing tool for the instructional designer. You're going to see like a 10x increase in productivity on your authors. It is not going to replace your instructional designers or your authors, and so that's important to remember. And like I said, you focus on that body of knowledge, and then you use it to create a draft, and then the author edits it. And so that's what generative AI is. We can go to the next slide. How it works is very similar. Um, you point it to a body of knowledge, and then you prompt the generative AI to create the content that you're looking for, and then you manually edit and curate it. Like I said, the most mature side there is textual. We're starting to see things on video, like Synthesia is a tool we use to generate video content off of. You're still, it's a pretty neat tool. Synthesia, I was talking to them at the conference as well. They got some neat things coming down the pipe as well. And then I was just talking to a guy this week on the just the pure audio side. So it's text, it's audio, it's video, and then you use that text, audio, and video into your courseware. So pretty cool. And like I said, you're seeing other tools like this one company that will update regulations within a course, which are pretty cool. So next slide is in terms of the learning platforms and how good a fit is this for the learning platforms. It's an okay pairing. I think what you're going to see here are LMSs that have homegrown course authoring tools incorporated into them. Will have to incorporate generative AI just to stay competitive, whereas LMSs that do not have course authoring tools will probably not incorporate it and continue to let other tools do the authoring for them. So,
Jeff
yeah.
Salima's asking if there's any downside to Synthesia.
No, because again, it's an authoring tool. You as the author are in complete control of the output. So unlike a chatbot where the AI is talking to the learner, and your people are not part of that process, and therefore you can have that false information. On these generative tools, they're really productivity tools for an author. So anything that they do that might not be right or correct can be corrected by the author before the course is released to the learner. So like I said, I think you'll see these, LMSs that embed that will use it, and those that don't won't, probably. And then kind of the flip side, if we keep going to the next slide, is about assessments. And here you got a nice little graphic about all the ways AI can touch assessments, from authoring items, item generation, to assembling the tests, even doing essay scoring. So there's some pretty sophisticated things that will come down the pipe. At this stage, the easiest one is the item generation, and that tends to be one of the things that is time consuming for folks. And I've been playing around with this with some of the AIs we've been using, and I was especially saying pointing it to a body of knowledge. Or I'm sorry, next slide. So if we focus on the item generation, it's using that AI and natural language processing to generate assessment items. Those are the questions on tests. Again, like the course authoring, it's a productivity tool. As we get around to some of these other things on that circle, it gets beyond the productivity tool for the authors. But right now, I think it'd be good to use as an authoring tool for assessments. And we've been playing with it on our own and we have an assessment engine in our LMS, and so we've been looking at that, and it's we're kind of in that research stage. And it's really done a nice job with the prompts in terms of you point it to a body of knowledge, a particular document that, or especially, again, text is really more advanced than video at this point. And say, hey, give me 20 questions that, assess somebody on this, 50-page PDF or something. And it really does a nice job putting together multiple choice questions. We've been really impressed with it, and so again, I'd look at this again as an author productivity tool, and like I said, holds a lot more promise in the future with some of the other stuff, essay scoring and all that. But I wouldn't necessarily get ahead of ourselves at this point. So that's what it is, how it works. If we go to the next slide,
Jeff,
is
someone has a question here.
yeah, yeah, fire away.
So anonymous here. They're saying
Yep.
theoretically, if I want to edit courses created in this tool and don't have Latitude anymore, do I still have access to this tool? The e-learning technology model, SCORM time, X API, etc. Separate content development and delivery. Would it be for a good reason?
Yeah, well, that's so our assessment engine and authoring tool is embedded within our platform. And so while you can export the items, into a flat file, um, you know, it's our proprietary authoring tool, right? Our LMS, we chose not to create an e-learning authoring tool. Some others have, because we thought there were great tools out there. And so I think the nature of the question was, so with our particular product, with the assessment, any assessments you put in our product, you could export your items, and then, uh, and then hopefully import them to another tool that would provide the assessments. Um, so I think that answers. I hope that does that sound like that answered the question, Ray? There were a couple more pieces of that question.
I think it's pretty much answered. I
Okay.
think probably the same person's asking, it says anonymous. Uh,
Yeah.
where are solution providers going with AI-powered proctoring integrated with assessments? I think that's a word, proctoring.
Yeah, I think on the proctoring, we got role playing coming down, so that's a good thing. Why don't we just whip past the assessments here, how it works, and go to the next slide. So hold on to that on the proctoring. We'll talk about role playing in a minute. That's something that's really pretty exciting. We can get to the next slide. This assessment, generative AI is also kind of an okay fit, and it's going to depend on whether the vendor already um, has an assessment tool built into their system or not. So, so if we can go on to the next one, I think the next one is role playing. Yeah. So this is where we start to get, and I think this is what you might mean by AI proctoring, AI role playing. One thing I'm really excited about is this and simulations, um, and because what we've done as an industry over the last, number of decades is we've gotten really, I'm talking as an industry, we're really good as an industry of creating, of knowledge transfer, right? All these different things, SCORM, videos, whatnot, to to transfer knowledge to somebody else, and then using assessments, whether they're essays or multiple choice, to verify that the learner has absorbed that knowledge. And so we're pretty good at knowledge acquisition as an industry. Where we struggle as an industry is skill development. And the analogy I always use is it's like getting your driver's license. First thing you got to do is pass the written test. And the written test is knowledge acquisition. You got to know what the red light at the intersection means. You got to know what that sign with the numbers on it, that's the speed limit sign. You got to know that you got to drive on the right side of the road or the left side of the road, depending on what country you're in. There's a bunch of things you got to know. And to get your driver's license, pretty much universally, first you get the written test, and a written test, once you pass it, you now know the stuff. Then you have to pass the road test. And the road test is all about skills. It's like, but can you drive? And what we've done as an industry, like I said, we're really good on that first part, getting that knowledge acquisition, making sure the learner understands what it is we just taught them. what we struggled with as an industry is skill development. And we struggled there because skill development requires practice and coaching. And if you go back to how if most of us probably have driver's license, if you go back to that, there was somebody with a car that sat in the car with you, that that coached you, gave you feedback, and you practiced in the parking lot how to go forward, stop, brake, turn left, turn right, parallel park, and then eventually you practice out on the street, and eventually you got onto the highway, and as you did your skill development. That's a very labor intensive thing, skill development, because you need to practice and you need coaching. And so now what's really exciting, and this is the AI powered Proctor, is role playing, this AI powered role playing. I think it's ideal for soft skills. And I've seen some of these role playing. I've seen both in just audio only and audio and avatars. So basically, what is it? Again, you're using AI and natural language processing to generate an avatar. And it could be a text, voice, or video avatar. The video avatar is really cool. And they're getting better every couple of months. And basically the learner practices their soft skills with the avatar. And it's really good for sales and negotiation, customer service, leadership, and conflict resolution. Funniest story on a role-playing avatar I've heard. I was at the Brand Hall conference last year, and there was a gentleman up there talking about this. And it was an avatar, a role-playing avatar to train interviewers. And he was at home, and he kicked it off, and he did the whole thing, and did the proper interview, and got 9 out of 10 on the assessment. And then he was like, I'm going to see if I can make this AI cry. And so as an interviewer, he started belittling the AI, yelling at it, screaming at it. And his wife was in the other room, and after he was done and he couldn't get the thing to cry, he gets out of his office, and his wife asked him, she was like, my God, what happened? I never heard you talk like that. And she thought it was an actual interview. He's like, oh, no, it was just, it was just this AI. I was just trying to push it to the edges and see what it would do. So it's kind of funny. But it's with the AI powered role playing, it gives the learner the opportunity to practice and practice. And then on top of that, that practice, there's personalized feedback and scoring. And that gives you that coaching feedback. And I think this has just tremendous opportunities for us to do soft skill development. So if we go to the next slide, just how it works,
Uh,
it's
I'm
oh,
sorry, Jeff,
yeah, go ahead, pop
can I
in.
interrupt
Yep.
you for a few more
Yeah.
questions? So anonymous again, how can AI tools help with learning, measurement, and ROI?
Well, that's the analytics, and we're going to jump to that in a little bit as soon as we get
Okay,
through role playing and simulation. And I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure we're in a good time. So let me
great.
just wrap up the role
Let me,
playing. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
there's another question. I don't know if this would suit to your topic right now.
Yeah.
Is there a way to curate learning like Netflix in an LMS based on what courses they took in the past? Courses based on domain expertise in their role or based on performance reviews?
Yeah, and that gets to the personalized learning path. So I'm going to put a pin in that one to make sure we get to it, and I'll get through
Okay.
role playing. Okay.
All right.
So
Great.
let me move quick then. So we can talk about those and answer any questions folks have on that. So again, point to a body of knowledge. In this case, in the role playing, an author configures the personality and motivations of the AI and configures the assessment rubric, right? And so neat thing here, great example I was talking to a company about would be like sales training. You can configure multiple AI avatars with different personalities, different motivations. You could have the middle-aged person come into a car dealership that has a motivation to buy a car and has a pleasant personality, and have one assessment rubric for that type of avatar. And then you could have another prospect avatar that comes in. Maybe they're a little bit more gruff, maybe a little bit more antisocial, maybe they're just trying to they're just looking for information, and their motivation is not to purchase a vehicle at this time. And so you can, by configuring half a dozen avatars, you can get a really good assessment of the person's sales skills. So that's it. If we hit the next one, how does this work with the LMSs? I think the role playing is going to end up being a new course type, much the way virtual instructor led is a different course type. And the way we link out to Zoom and other webinar type or video conferencing solutions, I think from an LMS perspective, it'll be a very similar type thing. We'll create a new course type called role playing or simulation, and we'll pop out there. Simulation is very, if we go to the next slide, simulation very similar to role playing. Role playing really good on the soft skills side, and you're interacting with that avatar. I separate that from simulation, where you're kind of you get engrossed into a virtual environment, kind of like a video game type of environment. And so we go next slide. That's what it is. And this is ideal for technical skills, how to install, maintain, repair things, how to do surgery. It's already we already have simulations for flight and drive emergencies. On the simulation side here, it's going to dramatically reduce the cost of creating the simulations. The AI is going to generate a lot of that. And then again, it'll give people the opportunity to practice a skill, such as changing the oil in an engine, doing a knee surgery, what to do, driving down a trucker driving down the road and the car flips in front of them. Just really good opportunity to practice that, and then again get that kind of assessment feedback from that rubric. So if we can go past the next slide, how does it work? Other nice things. It's scalable. It can personalize. Let's just keep going. Next slide. Similar to the role playing, the author configures the simulation. We're going to see a 10x improvement in productivity there, which is going to open up simulations to a much broader audience. Very excited about that. So go to the next slide, and I think we get down to excellent pairing. Again, new course type. Going to next. Okay, now this gets to the question earlier about, and this is one of the things that we're really excited about at Latitude, because in our LMS you can bring in performance metrics, and you can make that part of your learning plan and part of your certifications. So bringing that analytical AI, basically using analytics to improve the effectiveness of training programs. Next slide. It's using it to get those data-driven insights, optimize the effectiveness of the training program. If you do have those performance metrics, predicting future skill gaps, but it's that effectiveness analysis that I'm really excited about personally. Right now, what you really want to do is you want to do Bayesian analysis. That's a form of statistical analysis that'll indicate that this thing has this effect on this other thing. It's causality. Or you want to do a multivariant regression analysis. That's what most scientists use when they're doing hard science. And that's stuff that my 20 years I have not seen any learning department use. There's some basic statistics, average train, the performance of an average trained person versus an untrained person that you'll see, and that's a very viral statistic. But I think there's great promise here. Pardon me, sorry about that. Should have muted my phone. To really hone in on the ROI of training. And I'm very, very excited about this. And so you want to bring in databases, you want to bring in performance metrics, you want to integrate it into your CRM and your training history. And then but then the cool thing, and this is where it gets really cool, and you can see I get excited about this, is to bring in that unstructured data. So not just performance metrics would be like how many vehicles you sold or how many engines you repaired, but things like sales orders and repair orders, where you're getting into unstructured data in terms of what you sold, what kind of upgrades, and also other fun things like emails and social media and training content. And you bring all that in and you mash it up, and it's going to be really exciting. This is one of the areas that we're focused on. So I think the technology, the analytical AI technology is there, but it has not been what's the right word? Put into a nice consumable form for products. I mean, the technology is there, but it's not packaged the way some of the other AIs, the generative AI or the chatbot AI are. The chatbot and the AI and the generative AI are relatively further down the maturity curve than the analytical AI. But I'm really looking forward to this because, like I said, I've been in this industry for over 20 years. We do a very mediocre job as an industry proving the value of our training. Um, and what the executives want to see is if they spend $1 on training, how do they get $2 back? And I think the analytical AI is, as it matures, is going to really help on that. So I hope that answers the question from the person earlier. If we go to the next slide, that's how it does it. Lots of opportunities there in terms of the analytics and diagnostics and prescriptive analytics. So it's it's a little bit more immature as a technology in terms of embedding it into things. That's one of the things we're looking at, and we're very excited about that. Personally for our company as well. Next slide. And I think excellent pairing, because this is where we can, because it's almost like not only excellent pairing, but I think as a learning platform, you have to do it because we have to provide those tools to our customers that say, look, $1 in training generated $2 a return. I mean, if we as an industry can get to that point, and I've had clients that have done that, and it takes a lot of effort, quite frankly, on their part. But I've had clients that have done that. And when you can get to that point with your program, you can show that $1 invested yields $2 of benefit, or that a trained person outperforms an untrained person by 2 to 1. It gets the attention of senior management, and I'm looking forward to being able to bring that to the masses. Like for example, I had one client that did this, and these guys would literally lock themselves in a conference room for 2 weeks at the end of the year to do all the number crunching and all that on their program, because it takes a lot of stats and the knowledge of stats. But anyway, they were able to show that a trained salesperson sold twice as many vehicles as an untrained salesperson, and that a trained technician did the right fix, a much higher percentage rate than an untrained technician, and that was instantly translated throughout the C-suite as hundreds of millions of dollars of savings for the company. So when you do that, and then this particular client of mine, anytime they needed anything, budget happened because they knew the C-suite knew they would get their money back. So I'm very excited about this, very, very excited about this, because I think it can kind of do it for everything. So that's the analytical AI. Hope it answered that question. Do we have any more questions on that, Renee? Any follow-up there, or are we good?
We have a question. Omar is asking, how can our chatbot avoid adversarial attacks like prompt injection and data poisoning?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think that's one of the things that the underlying vendors are working on. It gets back to that body of knowledge and not learning from, AI in general learns from its interactions with the learner, but we want to be able to separate it and say, no, you're just going to provide information to this user. You're not going to learn from that user. And so I don't think the technology is matured enough to necessarily do that but we're getting beyond my technical understanding of the technology. So I don't have a question. I don't have an answer for you on that, but I can look into that and get back to you. That's a good question. So, and I think we're going to see a lot of, you know, a lot of things like that emerge. Which, going back to a question at the beginning of this, with the regulatory agencies, you know, the more high stakes you are, like I said, I was talking to the director of a medical board, medical certification board, and you know, it's exciting, but that's high stakes credentialing. And so I'd say the higher the stakes are, the more cautious you want to tread. Um, but you know, we will work those things out. I just don't know the answer to that question at this point. So, anything else, Renee?
Yeah, we do have another question.
Yeah, fire away.
Do accreditation and or regulatory organizations trust AI curated content or AI enabled role playing or simulation for higher stakes learning experiences?
Well, and that's, you know, referencing the conversations I've had. I think they're excited about it, but they're cautious, and the higher the stakes, the more cautious they are. So I think you're going to have to see a lot of this proven out in lower stakes credentialing and lower stakes situations, you know, like leadership training and conflict resolution, before you see it adapted at like medical board certification or you know, at that level. And that just makes sense, right? Like the higher the stakes, the more conservative you are, the more you're going to want to see the technology proven out before you adopt it. And we've seen that in the past as well, right? We saw that with the adoption of the internet. We saw it with the adoption of e-commerce. You know, the higher the stakes, the more conservative an organization takes. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me that if they wait a little bit. So, okay, we're coming up on the time here. That's the analytics. The last thing, if we just move over to the last use case, was the individualized learning path. Uh, it uses this similar analytical AI, but instead of focusing on that statistical analysis to kind of check the effectiveness, where it kind of answers the question earlier. It's saying it's taking all the info, you know, rather than looking at as a group and a training program and saying, is this program effective? What training impacts what type of performance? Where do we have gaps from a programmatic level? This focuses it on the individual, and it's pretty cool because we know a lot about the individual, right? And if you've taken those emails and taken that social media and taken their job reviews and taken any of their work products, taken all of their learning, and then also apply it to what their job responsibilities are, what they're supposed to accomplish, what kind of performance metrics there are, you can kind of do that and that use the analytical AI to do that same type of analysis, but instead of at a training program level, you're doing it at an individual level to say, hey, you as an individual, this is a good learning path for you. And then in an employee, you know, and then if we're looking from a career perspective, but I might be a marketing analyst today, but I want to be a chief marketing officer tomorrow, whereas my colleague over here, who's the marketing analyst today, might want to have another career path and maybe, you know, go more to, say, sales. And so, you know, you can also factor in the career path of the individual and it gets that personalized learning path. And so that's something that you're seeing a number of LMSs start to put into their products as well. So I think it's a really good pairing there. If we flip a little bit, next slide. You know, you get those personalized learning plans. It works very similar. You know, you use AI and the neural processes. And next slide. You know, very similar to the other analytical AI, but now you're really focusing on the individual. And next slide. And next slide. And excellent pairing. I think one of the things you're going to see with this is also flipped learning, where, right now we tend to teach and then assess. And I think one of the things that this individualized learning paths will do is you flip that and you do the assessment first, and then you can get an individualized learning plan to make up the gaps. So I hope that answers those questions. Did I any other questions, Renee, or I'm just gonna want to be conscious of the time, everybody's time.
I think let's move
Uh,
on
Yeah,
and then we
okay.
could jump into the Q&A session if that's
Yeah,
next.
so that's it. Those are the 7 use cases that we've identified so far. They're, going back to my original, it will evolve in at 20 years from now, it'll be completely different, but you got to start somewhere. So this is where we're starting. These are the things we're trying to incorporate into our product. And we see other vendors incorporating them as well. So, and now we can go next slide. If you want to take a picture of that, that's just QR codes to get to our website and our Surefire training impact process. We go to next slide. I think you had another poll.
All right, great. Thank you, Jeff. Let's have our second poll here. Now I'd like to ask everyone our final poll question before we move on to our Q&A session. Would you like to explore AI-powered LMS solutions for training and development in your organization? Just answer yes or no. At Software Finder, we offer full-feature trials and detail lengthy demos of any LMS software of your choice. Simply answer yes, and we will have someone from our team reach out to you. All right, I think that's sufficient time. Let's move on to the Q&A session. I have 2 questions here. I actually have
Yep.
3 questions here for you.
Yep.
4 questions. All right.
All right.
Okay. So Anonymous here is asking, what should companies look for when selecting solution providers when it comes to the vendor's commitment to AI? So in brackets, investment, ongoing innovation, etc. And what is Latitude's current level of AI-enabled capabilities and ongoing commitment?
Well, if we look at those 7 use cases, I would answer the question by saying that's at today that's where we see AI playing a role in learning and development. And so the question would be, which of those use cases are most applicable to your situation? If you have, so for example, if you have a predominantly e-learning training program and you've got a authoring tool that you're really happy with, maybe you're using, some of the Adobe products, but you're really happy with the authoring tool. Well, every authoring tool is going to bake that generative AI into it. And so in terms of looking for an LMS vendor, that use case doesn't matter to you because you know what I'm saying? On the other hand, the chatbot is a good tool, but it's more like a job aid, right? So if you're really into prescriptive learning, it's a nice to have, but not necessary. But I think you have to go through that list and say which of these is really important to you, and then just like you would any feature or function on a learning platform, right? And then based on that, does the vendor's commitment to that feature, to that use case, does it work for you or not? In terms of for us, going through those, we've got the chatbot for our administrators. We're working right now today on extending it to the end learner so they can, to the end customers so they can extend it to the learning community, their learners. We do not have a course authoring tool in our platform, and so we will not be doing that use case. We do have an assessment engine, so we will be doing that use case. The simulations we will create a new course type and link out to, just like we do with, we use Zoom and Adobe Connect and other webinar platforms for virtual instructor led. We're going to follow the same methodology for simulations and role playing. We'll have a number of vendors that we'll integrate with, and we're talking to a number of vendors right now to do that. We want to be, because we are already capturing performance metrics in our system, which is something a lot of LMSs do not do. We're very interested in the analytical AI improving the impact of training, and so that's that's important for a lot of our clients. So we're very interested in that one. We're focused more on partner learning, where there tends to be a more prescriptive training plan versus a career development plan for employees. So the last one, the individualized learning plan, we're moderately focused on that. We got to get these other things in place first. But what I think it's going to, for our clients, it'll be more, not so much the career development individualized learning plan, but flipping the training program to do assessment first, and then from that, an individualized learning plan to, for the very explicit knowledge acquisition, skill development that our clients are looking for. So that's us, and I think the industry in general.
Okay.
But what else you got,
Great.
Renee?
So, Brian asks, what pricing models do LMSEs generally have, and are there hidden costs that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I can't speak to the rest of it. Well, most of the industry we charge on a kind of a user basis. We have a user-based license and we have a enrollment-based license. And then I think what you're going to see with with a lot of the AI is, the underneath everything and in all these authoring tools and all these AIs that you're seeing pop up here and there and everywhere, there's a handful of companies, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Open AIs that are providing services underneath that vendors like Latitude are using to provide AI services to our customers. Those vendors charge for that, so you'll probably see an upcharge for these types of services, or in one way, shape, or another. What we envision for us is, when you add you can add virtual classrooms that we use Adobe Connect for. Every virtual classroom, we charge X dollars per user, and then there's an upcharge for each virtual classroom you want to add to your portal. So we envision it happening very kind of similar to that, whatever. But that's a we'll see what where the AI vendors, what they end up charging and on what basis. So, but right now it's probably more capability based.
Okay, great.
And in terms of hidden costs, we actually put all our prices on online for the world to see. So, if you're interested in us and what our stuff costs, just go to our website, click on the pricing, and you can see all our pricing. We're very open kimono about it. Okay, and anything else?
Yep. Raymond asks, can the AI recommend courses based on job roles, past training, or learner behavior?
Yeah, that's where, in two different ways, right? That's where that individualized learning program comes in, learning plan. The AI would you generate a learning plan based on those things, and as you configure it, it's like how much data about the individual can you get in there? Can you get your, not only job reviews and job responsibilities, but also, emails and performance reviews, and what body of knowledge can you get in there about the individual? That's where that individualized learning plan comes in. The chatbot can also do that, and we're in that you sit there and you ask it a question like, how do I do a hip replacement? And the chatbot will say, well, in general you do A, B, and C, and then it's doing a bunch of references to say, here's course A that teaches you this, here's course B, here's this reference guide, in the chat. It's kind of cool. So that's a couple different ways to get that. Anything else?
Yep, I think I do have like maybe two more questions here.
Yeah.
So I think Nina asks, does LMS support multi-language options?
That depends on the LMS. So ours does. You know, ours I think out of the box supports a dozen languages or 8 or 10 or something. And different LMSs support it in different ways. For us, when we say support the language, we have different literals for every page for each language we support, and a user can set their preferred language, and so all the pages will be in the user's preferred language, and then especially on the e-learning course type, you can load multiple SCORM courses, one for each language, right? So you can have, and for um, you know, customer service 101, you can have the English version, the French version, the Chinese version, the Arabic version, um, and it's all customer service 101. So our LMS, just for folks out there, and I try not to plug things on these things because it's really informational and I don't want to be salesy, but ours is used in over 150 countries and a dozen or so languages. So we handle that pretty well. But and others do it just as well, and some of them don't.
Great. Rahul asks, can AI adapt content difficulty based on user progress and assessments?
Yeah, well, so that's some of the interesting things coming out, especially in the simulations and the role playing, is that adaptive capability of the AI. So I so the short answer is yes, but remember this is an emerging technology, right? And so how well it does that is you know uh, is I don't know at this point. What I do know is it does a really nice job in the chatbot. It does, AI, the chatbot stuff is pretty solid. The content generation stuff and the assessment generation stuff is very solid and great tools. Role playing looks is got is and then that initial motivation and assessment pretty solid. It's the adaptiveness. I don't know. I think it's probably less mature than the other stuff. So, but it's coming, right? That's where they're going.
Okay, we have one final question.
Okay.
It comes from Anya, and I think it really fits how we're gonna end this. Do you believe AI is a necessity in LMS? Can we not do without it?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think the answer is yes. The question is it a necessity? Um,
Yes.
I don't think it's a necessity. Well, it's like every other major technological revolution, right? It is not a necessity today, nor will it be a necessity tomorrow, right? Like you have people still today living off the grid. Um, you know, you have people that are not on the internet. Um, You have people that don't drive cars. You have people, so is it a necessity? No, it's not something I think you have to jump out right now today and adopt or be left in the dust. And that's, every technological revolution, that's what the proponents always say, get on board today or you're left in the dust and you'll be, um, so the answer is no, it's still a young technology. It's still emerging. We're still don't know exactly how it's going to play out. These are what we see right now as the major things. And so, there's nothing wrong with a wait and see attitude. I do believe, though, that especially on the content generation side, it is a really good, and we've seen it with our staff producing courses. It's a really good productivity tool. So, if you wanted to dip your toe in it, I would start on the content generation side of things. It just really allows you to produce content, higher quality content at a much lower cost. It's a tremendous productivity tool. So if all those other things are like, I'm a little afraid, or I don't want to really touch it at this point or expose my learners to the AI directly. The content generation stuff, and because it's an authoring tool, right? So it's like, a word processor is a better, more productive tool than a typewriter. A typewriter is better than a piece of paper and pen. So, so I'd put it in that category. But no, I also think you can just wait and see, and have a perfectly good high impact training program at this stage. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jeff. This was a really insightful session. I think that's all the time we have today for questions. Any unanswered questions will be answered over the next few days or in a follow-up webinar. I would like to thank you once again, Jeff, for giving us this really insightful webinar. We have reached the end of our webinar today. I hope everyone found this webinar helpful. As of now, we would like to take your leave. Have a great week ahead and stay safe.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you,
And thank you,
Jeff.
Renee, for this opportunity.
Yep, sure. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.